Halfway House Mobile Edition. We got this fine Excursion. It is a 6-liter, world famous 6-liter Power Stroke. Probably the world's worst engine. Leaks oil like a motherfucker. It's been for sale. It's my buddy's neighbor. He had some people coming to look at it, and he went to move it, and it wouldn't start. Crank no start. So my buddy's like, hey man, my neighbor's got this Excursion. It's a good price. I'd like to buy it, maybe flip it or whatever. What could be the problem? I said, well, it could be, bad fickum, could be high pressure oil leak, could be an H-pop, could be bad injectors, could be, multiple things. So he's like, cam crank sensor, could be all kinds of shit. So, oh fuck, we come look at it? I'm like, yeah, come look at it. Come out here, crank no start, put the scanner on it, 320 psi, high pressure oil, IPR 85%, so it's pretty much telling it to max out and it's not doing anything. Of course unplug the Icp sensor just in case. Doesn't change a thing. This is an 05, so it's got on the valve cover over there. Check oil, it's got oil in it. It is showing oil pressure on the gauge, the factory gauge, low pressure gauge. So, I start looking, kind of peek down there, I can barely see this. I'm like, man, that motherfucker's crusty. Looks like it's probably original. I'm like, what all have you done to it? And he said, well, I did injectors a while back, and that's about it. So I'm like digging under here, looking around, and see it's got an EGR delete. See it has a brand new oil, what looks like a brand new oil cooler. I'm like, oh, it looks like it has a new oil cooler. He's like, oh yeah, I just put it, or I had the local shop put an oil cooler. I'm like, okay. Could have knocked a bunch of dirt down there, going straight to the IPR, got stuck, clogged the screen. So I'm like, well, what I would do first is I would pull the IPR out and see what it looks like. If the screen's clogged, the screen's gone, start there. So that's what I did. Came back out here, pulled this IPR out. I don't know if you can really see it, but that's what's left of the screen inside of there. And I pulled this out last week, that's why it's rusty. It's been sitting right there. So I'm like, okay, it's fucking crusty. So turn it upside down, tap it out. Some sand came out, and the rest of the screen, all the metal pieces from the screen came out. I'm like, okay, well maybe it clogged it. So I rigged up this little IPR pigtail, hook it straight to the battery, no click, no nothing, it doesn't move. I'm like, okay, well IPR is probably bad. So I'm like, hey man, looks like you got a bad IPR. The screen was clogged, but it appears that the IPR isn't working. So I guess I'll walk you through. Assuming that this checked out good, the screen was good, I would have used one of these, which goes in place of the IPR. These O-rings are over here, so that's what seals it, So you would stick this where the IPR goes, hook air up to it, which he left me some air, and then you listen for a high pressure oil leak, and you listen for an air leak in the high pressure oil system. Honestly, I'm not going to do that because I already found 2 issues with the IPR itself. The broken screen, the clogged fucking, deal, and this IPR doesn't appear to work at all. So I think I got that figured out. So I've actually already got the other IPR in there. I did test it with this, to the battery first. Click, 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 so it fucking works. So this one doesn't work. So I guess make sure you get a Motorcraft one. So here's how I got this shit out of here. Get your D-bag bottle out of the way. It's 2/8 right there. You got this hose right here, which is actually leaking. It has a hole. Actually, it looks like it has multiple holes in it. And you can see it's been spraying up here. So this hose comes off. This hose comes off right here. Oh, can't see it. That hose right there, which is this one. Then you got to get your fickum out of the way, which there's about, I don't know, it seems like every fickum I do is a different configuration. I think this one was 11 mils or something, and then 8s in the back or some bullshit. I got the back bracket there, but then there's these 3 plugs that go to the fickum. Be gentle with them. Try not to break them. They're usually broken already. These ones weren't, and they look like they're in good shape, so just take your time. You barely have enough room to fucking wiggle them out. And then I took the back bracket for the fickum, which goes back there, bolts the valve cover. Get that out of the way. Oh yeah, get your intake out of the way, obviously. Get all this crap out of the way. And then I undo the injector lines. Don't try to pull these clips out. If you just push them in, then you can pull it, it'll slide right out. Push the little clip right there, wish it would focus, and then it slides out. So that way all this shit's loose and you can kind of wiggle it out of your way, and you can see the new IPR right there. Pigtail is a bitch. You do need a special IPR socket, which I have right here. This is what I used. With a swivel, a long extension. This extension's a cunt hair too long. I probably should have used that one. You probably will need a big ratchet. I use this ratchet to get it off. But you know, getting it in, use the small one, snug it up with the big one, then you're back together. That pigtail is kind of a bitch to fucking get in there. This one's actually slightly damaged. It's brittle as hell like they all are. So there's no bare wire showing, and it still has the lock on it, so I'm gonna rock it. That, and I don't have another one of these handy. I should always carry an extra one, but I don't want to cut up my tool. But if it needs one, I'll put one on it. But so you got to undo. So those back two intake bolts, those are studs. These little bastards up here. You know, they're just gonna gouge your arm. Pull those motherfuckers out. One of them is a ground. I believe it's this is a ground. So don't forget that when you're going back together. Most of them don't have that heat shield right there anymore. There's a bracket that bolts that heat shield to the manifold. Get that shit out of the way. It's not too terribly difficult. It took me probably 45 minutes in the dark last when I took this apart. It's already back together. Yeah, another tip while I'm here is there's a snap ring, or whatever you want to call it, underneath here. So they're a bitch to get on even if you take this off, and then there's a little ring, take that off too, and it's still a bitch to get on, but it's a lot easier than trying to push it with this clamp on with the ring on. Just a tip there, because I struggled with those for years. I never knew there was a clip under that, but there is. So that's about it for this thing. About to go back together, and we will fire her up, or attempt to. I'm pretty confident that it's gonna fire up. It's actually nice working on something you're familiar with. I've been working on boats and shit, which is all new to me, so this is pretty nice. Yeah, I didn't really see anything else wrong with this other than oil leaks everywhere. So anyway, hopefully that'll help you diagnose one of these. So you got to have a scanner. There's no way around it. Always check the simple shit first. I remember years ago we did a dual H pop and a bunch of shit on this fucking 7.3 dually, and you know, turbo and all kinds of shit, and it ran fucking badass. Dude brings it back in a couple months later, and he said, man, it just keeps randomly dying on me. So the mechanic that worked on it, that I was working with, badass diesel mechanic, fucking, he had a 600 horse 7.3 back then and everything, and he keeps fucking with it, keeps dying on him. He's like, man, what the fuck, you know? And finally he pulls the dipstick out, and there ain't a fucking drop on it. Fills full of oil, runs tits. So don't forget to check the simple shit first, especially on these. I had another one. It was a 7.3 Excursion. Dude was driving it, had a cam sensor go out, so it died on him. He had it towed home, did the cam sensor, changed the oil, and it never started again. So he brought it to us, and we're fucking, well, not me, another badass diesel mechanic I was working with. He's checking everything, man. He's like, dude, I don't fucking know what the fuck's going on with this thing. Just won't build any oil pressure. And so I was like, hey, remember that time that, you know, the other mechanic, you know, was fucking with that 7.3 and finally pulled the dipstick, there wasn't nothing on it? He's like, oh shit, you know? So sure enough, he goes, pulls the dipstick, and he's like, what the fuck is this? I'm like, dude, that looks like Lucas. So I'm like, dude, pull the fucking drain plug. Pull the drain plug, and this is in the wintertime, and it's fucking full of Lucas. 2 gallons of Lucas in there. Drain all that shit out, put, you know, Rotella back in it, and it fires right up, builds oil pressure just fine. It was so cold, and the Lucas was so thick, the oil screen, the pickup, the oil pump couldn't suck it through the pickup. So be careful of that shit. Get some carpet, because these are not very comfortable. But yeah, always make sure they have fucking oil. Check the gauge, which isn't really a, you know, it's not a for sure thing, but if you're not building the oil pressure on the gauge, that's, you know, the factory gauge on the dash, that's, you know, something to watch out for. These oil pumps are pretty good. They don't normally fail very often. So just some things to watch out for. That's kind of, once you understand how these 6 liters and 7.3s work, they're still not simple, but you can kind of narrow it down within a few, minutes. Like, if it's building high pressure oil, or if it's not, then you kind of know where to go, or, so assuming that this IPR checked out good, like I said, hook up that contraption to air and listen for air leaks. This is an 05, so it doesn't have an STC fitting, which is common on the earlier ones. Cracked H-pops are common on the earlier ones. Bad H-pops are common on the earlier ones. I don't really see... the standpipes and dummy plugs, that's common. You can tell if they're the updated ones, I believe. If they're the 12 mil, is that... Yeah, I don't know, that sounds big. I think if they're the 12 mil, they're the new style ones. If they're the 8 mil, I think, then they're the old style ones, which fail all the time. I did forget about that. That's common on these. The old style has the like the log rail. This has like the bigger one. It could be a bad ICP sensor. Like it might be reading pressure, but so it's telling the IPR to basically back off, and it's not actually building a high pressure oil. Unplug that fucking sensor. It'll go into like a default tune that will limp it home, no matter what. So something else to watch out for. I've done the nipple seals, the O-rings on the oil rails. I've done the top, actually pretty common on the top of the injectors where the oil rail goes in, where the nipples go into the injectors. Those O-rings fail. Shit like that. So hopefully this video helps. I'm going to put this thing back together and head to Bandera for Thanksgiving. Go hang out with my old lady. And anyway, that's some 6-liter tips for you. It took me years to figure all this shit out. Hopefully you can learn something in 12 minutes. And jump back on this, and I will see y'all later. Oh yeah, one more tip on oil pressure issues. This is where your oil filter is. Zoom out a little bit. There are 2 versions of this cap. This is the small one. There is a taller one. So the factory filters use the small one. The Wix and I believe Napa Gold use the taller one. So the Motorcraft ones and a lot of the stock ones, they don't come with a cap. The Napa ones do. So if you put a Napa one on there, or a Wix one, it has the tall deal, and then you go and just replace the filter, the filter doesn't reach the bypass, and you'll basically just bypass all the fucking oil, or have long start issues and all kinds of weird shit. So make sure, if you got the small cap, you're fine. If you have the big cap, make sure you have the longer filter. Seen all kinds of weird issues with that. So yeah, be careful with that. That's all I can think of now. See y'all later.